And Wazy, look at the stream. Look what I did.
Hold up, I need to actually open it first. So
I wanted to do this yesterday, but I had so much shit to do yesterday. I didn't get around to doing it.
That's fair. One sec. Twitch.tv.
It says you're already in chat, so I don't.
That's weird. Oh, you what's it?
I put Christmas lights.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome.
I wanted to do some like reefs and whatnot too, but holly, Christmas holly. I want to do some holly, but the one I downloaded, didn't have it. It had a transparent background, but it had this like white shadow. So it's a shadow except white. Behind it. I'm like, I can't use this. It looks ugly.
Yeah, that's lame. Nah, this looks good.
Well, of course it does.
Getting festive. I love it. Here at Project Eradication.
We appreciate everybody's holidays, but
yeah,
I'm pretty sure the majority of staff are Christmas celebrators.
True.
If someone wants to, I don't know, if someone asks for us to put like the Hanukkah, what's the candle thing called?
Menorah.
Menorah. If someone wants like, hey, could you put a menorah? We could probably fit one like in the bottom left corner. If someone wants that. So, as long as no one asks us to celebrate their really evil holiday, I'd be willing to maybe slide something in. But for now, I think Christmas lights is okay. Everyone can love Christmas lights.
Everybody can vibe with those.
Okay, I have to go put a pizza in the oven, so keep everyone entertained, Wazy, while we wait for Flower to maybe trickle in a couple minutes late.
All right, I got this. Don't worry.
You can do it, Wazy. I believe.
Yeah.
I don't know why Dark Santa isn't here. He was here 30 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's a good question. Where have our viewers gone? Makes me so sad. All right, now that he's gone, I can finally, for all these years, leak Project Eradication. This is it. This is what's going down. And I'm so excited. You see, the show in which I am writing, the show that has been just so long in development, is going to include the Leoka Warriors. You see, Aelita will be, Jeremy will be in, Ulrich, Odd, Yumi, they're all going to be in it. And they will certainly be doing things in which I don't think you've ever seen before, like getting virtualized on Leoko. Wow, imagine something like that, It'd be crazy. Absolutely crazy. And, there's all going to be all sorts of wacky stuff. Relationships, character development. It's all there. And I could specify. I will specify. In time. But no, let's see. Chronicles has been pretty interesting so far. It's been a wacky and wild time, and it's just kind of along for the ride at this point. Flower's done an amazing job at doing all these recordings. Like we wouldn't be here and doing all this amazing fun stuff if it weren't for Flower Fox, because she's just been the MVP rolling with all of this. Welcome to the stream, Nick. Yeah, Flower has been the MVP, and it's great. You all should give your appreciation to her. She's amazing. And at this point, I'm just talking to I'm just talking to pass the time. Hopefully, Dylan will finish with his pizza. Finish putting his pizza in soon. And chat isn't as active as it was yesterday, which is a shame, but I'm sure we'll get there soon. We'll vibe, we'll get those viewers. And look who it is. It is Flower Fox. Just who I was talking about.
I think I let you have all the fun with the Chronicles.
Of course not. But yeah, no, Dylan's putting a pizza in the oven, so I'm keeping people entertained. Have you opened Twitch or?
Just open Twitch right now. Oh, I see. I see the lights.
Yeah, we have Christmas lights. We're festive. It's great. And I was also talking about how you are the MVP for doing all the recordings and stuff like that. Until I'm saying like, hey, everybody should appreciate Flower. So there's that. Ooh, you're watching a stream where they're reading the B-movie script? That's actually a great idea. Hold up. According to all known laws of aviation, it is impossible that a bee can... No. No. But,
here's the real challenge. Me reading the B script in the orc voice.
Ooh, yes. I can see Ulrich movie script. That would be fun. That would be amazing. I bet.
And then when it flips to a character, then I do Johnny. So all the characters sound like Johnny, but the narrator's Ulrich.
That is perfect. That is absolutely perfect. Ulrich can just do a spot-on Johnny impression whenever he wants. And nobody questions it. I don't know, Nick. That sounds very blessed. That sounds incredible.
See, reading the B-movie script on a live stream feels like something you do for like a charity, like playing that.
Yeah.
There's this infamous NES game where you drive Desert Bus. That's the game, Desert Bus. Where you play Desert Bus for charity, and it's literally the most tedious, boring game in existence. You literally just drive an actual bus in real time for like 3 hours from like Las Vegas to another city.
Wow.
And then you get a point, and then maybe it's like an hour, but it's still like ridiculous. And you only get points every time you actually do it. And you can't just hold down the button because there's drifting. So you have to actually make sure you don't drift.
Oh boy. Well, looks like you were right. Nick says they are doing it for charity, but I was also talking about like serious. Oh wait, who has come to join us? Welcome, Paradox. We are live right now for the stream.
Have you started the stream yet?
No,
yes,
not yet.
Well, we haven't
started the stream. Yes,
but
that's what I meant.
I just came to see what you guys were up to.
Yep, we
More
are
Chronicles.
We are live.
Yes.
We should do a radio talk show.
Radio talk show.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
That'd be fun.
Yes. I was gonna say the Caddick Herald, but that's the thing. We have that. We should do a radio talk show. A podcast. A hearsay podcast, Dark Sam.
This is kind of a podcast almost. We do a lot of just off the cuff comments and like whatnot.
We should talk about just like whatever's on our minds.
That's usually what goes down here. Like, we do topics like relating the content that we're taking in, but we kind of just talk about whatever, sometimes Lyoko related. A lot of times we end up talking about Fairly Odd Parents, although not recently, but that was a thing for a while.
So you are watching or reading something that is related to Lyoko, and yet you somehow managed to find your way to Fairly Odd Parents.
Yes, that's been a common trend. I don't know why, but it's just kind of happened.
Well, that's not too far off what I used to do back in high school.
Oh,
Every assignment that I had, regardless of what it was, me and a friend always linked it to Nixon. We always found a way to do it.
gosh. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, our teacher hated us. She would get mad at us for
I
doing
can.
it,
I
but
bet.
but she couldn't give us a bad grade because we actually had the connection there. We could actually, back up what we said.
No, I can imagine you being your teacher though. Just like,
It's like
just
enough
like
about Nixon. No.
no.
We also did a lot of things with, meth, but I'm not going to talk about that.
Oh boy.
Yes, this is going to be a very interesting podcast.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Well, we're just good vibing right now. We're waiting for Dylan to come back at the moment so that we can start. Yeah, so that we can start Chronicles. But for the moment, sorry. Go ahead.
I can't stick around for Chronicles. I have. If you look at staff chat, you can figure out why I didn't do any schoolwork yesterday, so I have to do that today.
Ooh, fun. Good luck with that. You got this. Yeah.
Yeah, I got this. I totally got this.
Well, yeah.
No, I don't. No, I don't. I don't want to do this. I don't want to. It's just,
Yeah, we all have to do it. But I do wish you the best of luck, and yeah. But also, real talk. Oh, we're on book 4.
Yeah, we're on book 4, chapter 6.
We actually streaming what we're saying right now?
Yes.
Yeah, everything is live. And they're reading it, and we also respond to their comments in the Twitch chat. So, yeah. Dylan, well, I don't know. Is Dylan, you there? Or are you
I've
still
been here for 7 minutes.
Hold on, so you just kind of let us go?
Yeah, I did. I did just kind of let you guys go.
Wow, that's.
Oh yeah, you missed hardware.
That is so.
So
creepy?
What? Creepy? No, it's not.
He's just vibing. Just
Yeah,
this.
Okay.
I don't want to interrupt your intellectual conversation. That would be mean to the viewers who are enjoying your intellectual conversation.
That's fair. You missed the part where I leaked literally everything about Project Eradication.
Oh, you
hired? So I just
wait. So you told them about my super secret Russian document monster?
Yes.
Oh shit!
I told them all about
the super secret Russian document monster.
Yes, I did. I also talked about the thing where Lyoko warriors, you know what they do? They get virtualized onto Lyoko. I spilled the beans about all of that.
Oh,
and
shit.
It was crazy.
You told them about that, damn it.
Yeah.
Also, Paradox, I should inform you that this voice chat is being recorded for quality assurance purposes.
Yeah, that has been said.
Yeah.
Yeah, many times.
Yep. We are live. We are. Ooh, it's our good friend George the Jedi.
Sad that nobody has said anything about the Christmas lights in chat.
Oh, in chat. Nope.
Yes. In chat.
Flower talked about it when she joined.
Oh, did
so
you,
there's
Flower?
that.
Thank you. Thank you for noticing. I spent 20 minutes putting it together.
Beezy, is that your new nickname or something?
15 of
Sorry.
On the stream chat.
Oh, Holloways, yes, because it's festive. I'm
No,
usually
he
waiting.
means the Twitch chat.
Holiday.
No,
Holloway.
but I spent like 15 of those 20 minutes finding the right lights.
Nice.
Very cool. I used to go really crazy with Christmas lights.
So Dark Xana, my snow brush isn't in my car. So I went to go unbury my car so I could go get McDonald's.
Priorities.
And I couldn't unbury my car to go get McDonald's. So I'm cooking a pizza in the oven right now.
Ah.
That's why I'm cooking a.
Why?
Oh.
Why
What
would you
is a
quit
snowbird?
that?
Why would I what?
He.
You quit. McDonald's is priority. Why did you quit at that?
Because I can't drive with my windshield covered in snow. And I'm not going to walk 10 minutes to McDonald's, walk 10 minutes back, and start the stream late. Because that's a disservice to our fans.
That sounds like quitter talk. What you could have done is you could have booked it there on foot. You talk about being the embodiment of Ulrich Stern, yet you didn't even bother to try using super sprint. Or
That's
shame.
because I'm not on Lyoko and Orc can't super sprint in the real world. But you wouldn't
Nah,
know
this
that
is
because
Garage
you're not a
Kids.
true fan, Wazy.
This is Garage Kids. We're in Garage Kids land.
Yeah,
That's
but in Garage
and
Kids land, it's never confirmed that Ulrich has super sprint.
Yes, it
in
has
the
been.
real world.
Yeah,
Yes,
it actually.
In the real world.
Nah, it has been.
It has.
No, it's
Their No, all their powers are usable in the real world and Lyoko.
Wait, so
and because...
so Odd can like see into the future and like know the answers to a test?
That's so Raven, man. Yeah.
I don't think he has control over his powers like that, but he does have glimpses of the future.
You can gaze into the future.
All right. Let's get this started.
Yeah.
Are you gonna
think about
stream
it
for
podcast.
us?
What? Oh yes,
Yeah.
That's right. Sorry. I mean,
podcast would be fun.
Yeah, be great. You know, we do it. Talk about whatever.
Yep.
In our mind.
Oh, hello.
And it's
right.
Oh my
All
lordy.
right. Paradox out. See ya.
Yeah. Bye-bye. You know what? You have a paradox happening for too long, it can cause danger to the timeline. So he had to leave us, but he will always be in our hearts.
Did anyone click that link I sent in staff earlier, by the way? I need to ask.
What link?
Which link?
The YouTube link? No.
Yes. No.
Awesome.
I haven't clicked it.
I just clicked it.
Okay.
Oh god, no.
But no.
It's not.
No, thank you.
It's not your standard Rickroll. Yeah, Dark Xana was watching my stream when I'm like, oh, everyone's sending Rickrolls in staff chat right now.
Mm-hmm. We're no strangers
so
to
how the
love.
books? So I heard that the books broke Dylan. How did they break him?
Whoa. Sorry. I was trying to mute it, but it didn't mute. So I'm like, crap. And so I just muted it. I was like, wait.
To answer your question, Epsilon, I don't think it's just the general nonsense.
No, it didn't actually break me. My job has broken me. My back is in ruins. I am Batman.
Well, I've got other things to do, so good luck to be torn.
Okay. Well, he left instant. All right, everyone mute up. Everyone mute up before we say anything else, so we can get this started.
All right.
Chapter 6. Venture into the Hermitage. I don't trust Jeremy, declared Xana. Aelita sat beside him on the couch. Jeremy had interrupted the conversation abruptly when Mago's soldiers approached, and she and Xana were now alone once more. Aelita took the young man's hand. Don't you get it? Jeremy's theory explains everything. You and I used to be friends, but they hurt me, so I couldn't come see you. And then the virus inside of you was activated. Then you lost your emotions and became something different. A machine. The machine that killed my father. Aelita felt her heart start to beat harder. She could only think about how Xana had murdered her father. He sacrificed himself to destroy this invention that had gone out of control once and for all. But now you're different from the Xana that I battled against on Lyoko, she continued. So if you want, you can help us. How? I told Jeremy that we could create new robots to use against Green Phoenix, but he didn't want to. The young girl forced herself to smile. It'd be best not to alert the terrorists, at least for the time being. For now, we can spend a bit of time together, get to know each other better, and catch up on lost years.
You'll see, something will come up sooner or later, and we'll be back in action. She stood up. She was tired of being cooped up inside the hermitage. Outside, it was a splendid summer afternoon, and she wanted to breathe a bit of fresh air. Come with me, she proposed. Let's go for a walk. Yumi heard the noise of small rocks hitting the window. It was odd. Just like they had planned, he didn't reply to her message, but came at full speed. The young girl looked at her watch. 1:15 midnight. The men in black had come to the gym not long ago and took the cases full of equipment before leaving. They were prepared for the mission, and now it was their turn. The young girl agilely climbed up the stairs, covered with weights and medicine balls, opened the window of the gym, and stuck her head outside. Odd and Richard waved to her. Wait here, she whispered. She climbed down the stairs, grabbed a large oxygen container, and tossed it to her friends through the open window. She continued until she ran out of equipment to throw to them, then slipped through to the other side of the window herself. Yumi, trying to catch her breath from all the effort, stared at Richard. Well, she asked, did I get it all? Yes, it's fine, the young man replied to her with a smile. It's not exactly the equipment I was hoping for, though. These are military rebreathers. In other words, they function by recycling the air exhaled. They're very quiet and have the advantage of not creating any bubbles underwater. Wow! Exclaimed Odd, always excited by anything out of the ordinary. The problem is that they're a bit complicated to use. I'll need to make sure I correctly explain how to use them. And we'll learn it by heart, said Yumi, giving Odd a wink. At this hour, the others have already dived in, I'm sure. Ugh, exhaled Eva. We've been here for an hour, and I'm starting to get bored. Oryx sighed and looked up to the sky. They had arrived at the very edge of the bridge that ended over an immense hollow cylinder that seemed to be made of blue rocks. The cylinder had no hand grips, and it was so deep that it seemed to go on forever. To fall from this height, well, really, Oryx didn't know if that would kill him or not. They were inside the Oko, and on this world there were no bones to be broken, only life points to be lost. However, who knows what would happen if he were to fall all the way down? He hadn't the slightest desire to find out. Hey, Eva called out to him. Mind telling me why you aren't replying to me? Do you have a problem with me, by chance? Can't you shut up even for a moment? Oryx burst out. I'm thinking about what we should do. If we don't find a way to get down, we'll need to head all the way back to the first city. Eva sat at the edge of the bridge, her eyebrows furrowed. I shouldn't have to follow you when Four Eyes around. You're nothing but a couple of brats. With that, Oryx lamented at how well Eva had learned his language, but a noise then caught his attention. It was a repetitive brushing sound, like the sound of pages in a book being leafed through at full speed, and it was becoming stronger and stronger. The boy unsheathed the katana that he was carrying at his side and stood on guard. His samurai sword was a blade so bright that it seemed as if a light were shining out from it. What are you doing? Said Eva while jumping to her feet. Stay on your toes, murmured Oryx. They're coming. The manta rays zoomed out of the chasm. There were two large white and black creatures. They had long triangular bodies that worked as fins or wings and that ended in a long pointed tail. The creatures had neither eyes nor mouths, but two small horns that extended from their snouts. What are those things? Yelled Eva. A pair of Xana's monsters, replied Oryx. The boy more tightly grasped the hilt of his sword, preparing for combat. Don't be afraid. This time, the mantas aren't here to attack you. The voice that had just spoken was deep and seemed to come from all directions at once. You're Xana, cried Oryx. What do you want with us? Jeremy is in contact with Aelita and I in the mirror. We came to a sort of agreement. Oryx didn't know what to do. He didn't trust Xana at all. He was the enemy, the one who had put them through a lot of hard times, and against whom they had battled countless times without end. But for now, the manta rays had not fired their lasers. I came to bring you to a safe place, the voice continued. Jeremy and I are about to come up with a plan to face the Green Phoenix, and your friend wishes for you two to help us, even if I don't see how you could. Thus, the decision is yours. With a firm flap of their wings, the manta rays descended from above them in a circle until landing on the surface of the bridge and wait. Eva smiled, clapped for joy, and got on top of the manta ray closest to her. She grabbed the creature's small horns as if they were reins. This is so cool, she cried out in English before continuing in French. 1,000 times better than the horse riding classes at Meredith's school. My friends will die of jealousy. Okay, fine, cried Ulrich, unheard, while he sheathed his sword. Take us wherever it is you wish. Then he mounted the other manta ray. It was a moonless night, and the park at Caddick seemed to be fast asleep. Odd felt himself shiver in his wetsuit. He left the large manhole cover on the ground. Then he stood to see Yumi and Richard. He had to cover his mouth with both hands so as not to burst out in laughter. Yumi seemed as if she had transformed into an astronaut. Her hair was tightly packed into the hood of her suit, and the diving mask was completely covering her face. 2 large, dark tubes ran from her mouth to her back, like a pair of tentacles that connected to the oxygen container backpack. Richard turned towards Odd with a smile on his face. "Don't laugh too hard, it's your turn now." The young man repeated all the instructions from beginning to end on how to use the rebreather and helped Odd to put on the equipment. "Perfect," exclaimed Richard lastly. "It's a very short trip from here to the Hermitage. Plus, you only have to remember to follow me very closely. Everything clear?" Odd tried to speak, but his lips only let out a grumble. The mask reeked of plastic and made him feel like he was suffocating. While Richard finished putting on his wetsuit and gear, Odd focused the underwater light in the direction of the sewers. After only a slight drop, the sickly surface of the river could be seen. He had traveled with the rest of the group down these tunnels numerous times before to reach the factory or the Hermitage, but now, with the sewers flooded, it was more of an adventure. The only thing that grossed him out of it was the idea of submerging in these stinky waters. Richard clasped by close to him, moving his ridiculous fin feet like some kind of frogman. He then adjusted his mask on his face and jumped into the sewers, splashing Odd up to his head. A second later, Yumi did the same. Odd watched as his two friends disappeared into the small well, figured it was too late to turn back now, then dived in after them. The water was murky and freezing cold. In front of his mask, particles were drifting by that he thought were better left unidentified, illuminated only by his light. He felt as if the weights that he'd attached to his waist were dragging him down. He adjusted the life vest. Richard called it a BCD until he felt it was adequate and then looked around. He wasn't able to make out a thing, not even the walls of the tunnel. Everything was too dark, and the water was very dirty. Odd needed to force himself not to vomit. He was lucky to have the mask preventing him from smelling everything, but the idea that this water was filtered in the wetsuit and that he was bathing in it. He finally noticed the lights, 2 small twin sparks that were waiting for him a short distance away. The boy moved the fins on his feet slowly until reaching Richard and Yumi. When he saw them, Richard raised his head with a thumb up and began to swim through the tunnel. Yumi and Odd followed him. Jeremy was seated in front of the command post of the supercomputer, on the first underground floor of the factory. It was on these very screens that he had seen Aelita for the first time, and from here that he had guided his friends through their innumerable virtual adventures. But everything was different now. The two soldiers from the Green Phoenix were posted behind him, observing him with glassy eyes, while he tried to decipher the codes from Richard's palm computer. Jeremy had consulted Memory's notes and agreed with the woman's conclusions. The palm computer contained an activation program, but there was no human way of understanding what it should activate. This was the most complicated code that he had ever analyzed in his entire life. It didn't make any sense. The boy took off his large round glasses and cleaned them with the bottom of his shirt. At least, he had succeeded in contacting Aelita and spoke with Xana. Somehow, it seemed that his friend had managed to get through to the artificial intelligence, drawing him to their side, and he could prove to be a worthy ally. You two. You two, outside. You're distracting him like that. Jeremy turned around in the pivoting chair. The doors of the elevator closed behind Memory. The woman was clothed in her usual white lab coat, but she had a different expression now. Her eyes were encircled by small wrinkles from worry. The soldiers gave a salute and left, walking out as rigidly as 2 marionettes. Memory addressed Jeremy with a tired smile, and he noticed that she was no longer wearing her gold necklace. Aelita had said that hers was activated. Could it be that the transmitter had truly worked? "You seem surprised," the woman said. "Why?" "Your necklace!" Memory's cheeks became the same scarlet color as her hair, and she removed the necklace from the pocket of her coat with 2 fingers. "I didn't want Mago to see it," she murmured. "I wasn't feeling well this afternoon, and I passed out. That's why they immediately made you leave the Yoko, but I'm feeling better now." "Oh, you don't seem so well, though," replied Jeremy. The woman made neither a reference to Aelita nor to Hopper. The boy thought for a moment if he should divert the conversation topic to his friend, but then decided not to say anything. It could be dangerous. Memory had been working for Hannibal Mago all these years, and he'd risked putting Aelita and the rest of his friends in danger. The woman pointed to the main screen at the commands. "Have you made any progress with the code?" she asked him. "Not yet," Jeremy responded, lowering his head. "I haven't managed to find the common thread. It generally just looks like a confusing mishmash." "Well then," said Memory with a wink, "let's just put that aside for the moment and concentrate on the first city instead. The castle is a powerful weapon, and it should not end up in the wrong hands. I want to study it carefully. Do you want to help me?" Jeremy nodded in silence. Odd was stunned by the deep silence down below. The rebreather made practically no noise, and the boy could only hear the inhaling and exhaling of his own breath. Richard and Yumi's fins undulated in front of his face as soft shadows. They had crossed a labyrinth that seemed so strange and new to Odd, much different than the path that he had taken by foot millions of times before. The circular sewer tunnel had now been transformed into a long, narrow passageway. The children traveled down it until reaching the end and swimming up, following a flooded staircase dug out in the cement. After that, the water level began to drop. Richard pushed himself off the stairs and raised his head, exiting the water. "Phew!" exclaimed Odd, removing his mask. "Another minute of silence and I was going to explode!" "Talk quieter," Yumi warned him. "The Green Phoenix soldiers could be just around the corner." Odd looked all around him. The steps disappeared behind his back under a cloak of cold, dirty water. In front of him, on the other side, there was a door that the boy recognized immediately. It was the one separating the underground passage from bottom floors of the Hermitage. They were here. "This water stinks," he complained. "I'm starting to feel like throwing up." Before he could finish speaking, the metal door opened and a hand holding a gun appeared. Richard let out a small cry and slipped on the wet steps, falling on his back into the water with a loud splash. "Don't shoot!" Odd rushed to yell out while raising his arms. A face emerged from above the hand that the boy didn't recognize at first. The person was wearing glasses and had gray hair tucked in the hood of a wetsuit. "What are you doing here?" asked Professor Hertz. "Well, you see, we came to give you a hand." Hertz lowered her head in resignation. She helped Richard out of the water. The young boy looked like a scared puppy. Odd couldn't believe his eyes. The professor was holding a giant gun in both hands and looked nothing like the peaceful science teacher that he knew so well. She had been transformed into a secret agent. She had become Major Steinbeck once more. "You shouldn't have come here," whispered the woman. "Actually, it's your fault," protested Odd. "Till now, we were the ones doing all the dirty work, but when the time came to finally do something fun..." The professor threw him a frigid glare. "This isn't a game, Odd. We have to face the terrorists, and these guns shoot real bullets. You should have stayed at Caddick." The children removed their rebreathers and the rest of their equipment, only keeping on their wetsuits. Soaking wet, they entered through the metal door and slid into a tight storeroom guided by Hertz, who, as they entered, remained guarding the entrance with a gun in her hands and her eyes focused into two narrow slivers. Inside, there were 3 secret agents, Oric's father, Jeremy's father, and the Ishiyamas. Everyone was crammed into their wetsuits, over which they had put on bulletproof vests. Lone Wolf and his 2 partners were armed. "Why are the children here?" demanded Ferret. "Yeah, what are they doing here?" added Weasel like an echo. "Keep quiet," Lone Wolf hushed them. "They'll hear us." Akiko, Yumi's mother, closed her hand like a vice on her daughter's shoulder. "You owe me an explanation for this, Yumi, and it better be good." Odd realized that his friend was in trouble, and he rushed to intervene. "We wanted to take part in the mission. We know how to use the scanner, so we could be of use." Lone Wolf furrowed his brow perplexed, but Odd wasn't about to let this stop them. They had managed to make it this far, and he was more than determined to participate in this adventure. Chapter 7. Xana's Decision. The Hermitage's semi-basement was made up of a long corridor to which a number of storerooms and rooms were connected. One of these was a refrigerator room that had not seen light for many years, which led to the secret room in which Hopper had built a scanner to use to enter the mirror in the first city. Aside from the secret passage through the sewers, the only exit from the basement was in the house's garage, from which could be accessed the living room and the large garden. Odd, Yumi, and Richard remained hidden, waiting for the adults to finish a quick exploration. Professor Hertz returned to the basement several minutes later. "Come with me. I'll accompany you to the secret room. Michael has already set to work on the scanner to get your friends out. You'll stay with him. Be silent and courteous, and wait for the rest of us to take care of all the rest." The youngsters nodded. The professor behind them acting as a protective shield, they left the tiny room and ran towards the refrigerator room. From one end of the corridor, Lone Wolf watched them, gun in hand. Memory had left to bring them hot tea and was now stealing a glance at the boy with glasses through the steam from her cup. Jeremy was 13, while her daughter would already be around 23 years old. Memory couldn't believe it. Alita should already be a grown woman by now. The last time she had seen her, she had been very small, and throughout all these long years, she, her mother, had forgotten her. How could she have? Since she had awoken from being unconscious, Memory had received rapid glimpses, visions, of a past that she never seemed to have lived. She remembered a military base. She had worked there at her husband Waldo's side. He was robust, had a beard, and they had a daughter together, her darling Alita. Then, a soldier named Mark Hollenbeck had kidnapped her, and, continuously on the road, had taken her from one prison to the other for many years. She had then been locked in a hidden cabin in the National Park of Mercantor, in the French Alps, and she had been stranded somewhere in England, and later in Morocco. The soldier, who had adopted the name Hannibal Mago, had forced her to work for the Green Phoenix, his criminal organization. She had rebelled against him, because all she wanted was to find her husband and daughter again, and each time, after a while, when she thought she would never make it, her necklace would glow. It was Waldo, telling her that he was still thinking of her and always loved her. She responded to him in the same way. It was a simple and silent method of contact that allowed her to remain hopeful for a very long time. She remembered one scene in particular from this period of time. It was the 2nd of May, 1994. Mago had forced her into her room with a chair and a camera. He had bound her hands and forced her to record a message for her husband. He wanted to force him to commence work on Project Carthage for him, but in this message she had pleaded for him to flee, and Mago had knocked her out to render her unconscious. Less than a month later, something happened. Grigory Nictopoulos had entered her room. For once, he wasn't accompanied by his 2 dogs and was wearing a strange pair of leather gloves with a screen on the back and long, colored cables leading from the fingers. The man had placed his hands on her head, and she had lost her name. She had become memory. She had lost her past, and from that moment on became Mago's assistant. How had Grigory managed to erase her memory of the past? Who was she really? What was her name? And why is it that for more than a dozen years the necklace had never lit up, not even once, to signal to her that Waldo and Alita were well and was still thinking of her? Memory finished drinking her tea and placed the cup on one of the console screens. Jeremy turned to her. "Anthea, look," he said. Memory stared at him, eyes wide. That was her real name, Anthea. The refrigerator room was a square room with an enormous airtight door. Large metal hooks hung from the ceiling, and on the walls were large empty shelves. Several ventilation shafts embedded in the walls served to cool the room using a gigantic motor in another room, but currently it was rather warm. On the back wall, a brick door had slid up on invisible railings to reveal a tiny passageway that led to a lit room. I'm leaving you here," Professor Hertz announced, lowering the barrel of her gun. "Try not to break anything or cause any problems." Yumi nodded. She still couldn't get her mother's look of reproach out of her head, and was beginning to think it was a mistake to come here. Odd had always been the slightly goofy jester of the group. Since when had he become a warped plan maker? It was obvious that if there was one thing he could do, it was get them in trouble. Richard, Odd, and the young girl bade goodbye to the professor and ducked their heads to enter the secret room. It was a small, empty space containing only a sofa and an old television. One of the walls had a large opening in it, made by the end of a pick, through which they could see yet another room with a command post and a scanner column inside, the latter which looked somewhat like a shower cubicle. Mr. Belpois was already working on the computer. Yumi approached, distractedly running her fingers along the surface of the column. Once inside, she could be virtualized inside the mirror or the first city, and she could free her friends. "How's it going?" she asked Jeremy's father. The man gave her a warm smile. Michael Belpois very much resembled his son. He wore the same round glasses and had the same blonde hair, although it was beginning to grow sparser on the top of his head, leaving a bald patch. "Well, I'm trying to remember how this thing works," he explained to her. "It's been years since I laid my hands on a terminal like this one." "I'm sorry," Yumi said, returning his smile. "I'm not very good with... I'm sure that Jeremy would know what to do, although if you want, I could try to lend a hand." Michael offered up his place in front of the keyboard. "Go on," Odd approved, enthusiastically encouraging Yumi. "Get in contact with Alita right away." It was at that moment the children heard gunfire. Xana was invisible. Ulrich and Eva were in a small clearing among the trees, and the artificial intelligence was floating all around them. It permeated the air, living in the tree trunks so tall their canopies were lost in the clear, monotone sky, and hidden in the immeasurable emerald green carpet of the woods, and it observed. Its manta rays had taken the children to a clearing near one of the towers, an enormous candle planted in the ground by a tangle of dark roots. Through these Yoko towers, Xana could interact with the real world. Use its power to infiltrate the electrical network of any nation on Earth and deactivate or destroy it. Or he could even exploit its incredible energy to save the 2 children and bring them to safety. They seemed so fragile to him. They were talking to each other calmly, without noticing his presence. He could have launched an army of monsters upon them and destroyed them. With a simple click of his fingers, he could have reduced their life points to nothing and sent them back to reality. But he hadn't done it. Xana was a very advanced program, and he couldn't feel uncertainty or confusion in the human sense of the words. Xana compiled data, fed it into complex statistical matrices, ran simulations and analyzed the results, and at that moment, however, the creature couldn't decide how to act. All his projections advised him to maintain his alliance with the Green Phoenix. He had to help the terrorists conquer the world, destroy all the Earth's communications, and overthrow its governments. At the end of this destructive procedure, it wouldn't be hard for him to get rid of Mago and become the absolute master of the world. But this success would have a price. It meant the defeat and probably the death of Alita and her young friends, and Xana couldn't accept that. This simple loss, such a marginal one, stirred something within him. Blocking his logical processes was something that resembled rage. Could this be the virus Jeremy was talking about? Or perhaps he is no longer a simple and cold computer program? Xana condensed himself, uniting the matter on the Yoko to adopt a human form. Upon seeing the black-haired boy appear before him, Ulrich leapt up and slid his hands onto the handle of his katana. "There you are," he exclaimed. "If I wanted to hurt you," commented Xana, with a smile, "I wouldn't have chosen this fragile appearance." He turned towards Eva. "How is my young assistant doing?" "Well, thank you," the girl responded unsteadily. "Excellent. Until Jeremy and I agree on a plan of action, you shall be my guests. If you need something, you need only ask." At that moment, Xana felt an incoming communication. It was coming from the factory command post, but it wasn't Jeremy. It was Mago in person. The boy turned to Ulrich. The boss of the Green Phoenix wants to speak to me. You can listen in on the conversation, but you must remain silent. He cannot know that you're here. Oric nodded, and Xana stretched out an arm to draw a square in the air. Suddenly a screen appeared, floating a meter above the ground. In the frame, they could see the face of Hannibal Mago. "Pleased to see you again," said the boss of the Green Phoenix. He smiled, and his mouth opened, clearly displaying his golden canine teeth. Odd jumped. At his side, Yumi and Michael Balpois stood up, and the three of them turned to the entrance of the secret room. Richard, who had stayed by the side of the hole the whole time, had his back pressed against the wall and was having trouble breathing. They heard more gunfire, the sound of objects being thrown to the floor, and shouting in French and other languages. The alarm had been raised. The men of the Green Phoenix had noticed they were there. "Richard!" Odd cried. "Run to the door of the refrigerator room and get ready to close it if you see an enemy soldier." "Yes." "Yumi, open the communication to the mirror or the first city. Whichever. We just have to get our friends out of there." The girl got back to work on the computer, helped by Jeremy's father. We're connected to the first city," said Michael Balpois, shaking his head, "but the scanner isn't picking up any human life forms." Yumi's fingers trembled on the keyboard, and her friend ran to her side. "Don't worry," he whispered. "You'll see. Oric and Eva will be fine. I'm sure there's a logical explanation. Meanwhile, try to get in contact with Aelita." "Got it," responded the girl, hammering her fingers against the keys. Odd stayed for a moment to observe the monitors, forcing himself to ignore the battle sounds coming from outside. He could hear the barking of dogs. "Aha!" exclaimed Michael joyfully. "I've just found Aelita. We'll have an audio-visual connection in a second." The screen trembled from the interference, contaminating the transmission like a curtain of sparks. Then the image cleared to show the entrance to the factory, beside an elevator leading to the underground floors. Aelita was with a young boy with black hair. They saw her lift her head and put a hand to her ear. "Is someone there?" she asked. "Aelita, it's me, Odd. How are you doing? Has Xana—" No. Everything's fine. I could even say Xana and I have become friends." Odd opened his eyes wide as saucers, stupefied. Yumi leaned towards the computer screen. "Aelita, we don't have much time," she interrupted. "We can't find Oric and Eva in the first city. Do you know what happened to them?" "They're safe and sound on Lyoko. Xana gave them refuge," responded the pink-haired girl. "Okay," Odd exclaimed. "For now, we're going to get you out of the mirror. Get ready." Aelita tried to babble a response, but Odd became distracted by an uproar coming from the next room. The Green Phoenix soldiers had made it inside. Hannibal Mago explained to Xana that a group of people from Caddock had infiltrated the Hermitage with the help of the men in black. The young man observed Oric and Eva out of the corner of his eye. They were seated on the ground, concerned and frightened. Was saving them really so important to him? "What do you want of me?" he asked the boss of the Green Phoenix. "You could be a little friendlier," Mago responded, shaking his head. "After all, we're now associates. Anyway, here's what I want. Create more robot soldiers immediately, and make them come out to the Hermitage scanner to help my men. Meanwhile, I want to create a little chaos in the city, to give them a small taste of what's to come. Make all the traffic lights on all the roads red, to cause a string of accidents everywhere. Cut the electrical power. Screw up the radio communications of the police, the army, the firefighters. Well, you get what I'm going for. I want Dido to know that I'm not kidding around when I tell her to stay away." Xana knew that this moment would have come sooner or later. In the meantime, he had tried to buy time. He had helped Aelita and, as much as possible, Oric and Eva. But he had not personally exposed himself. Xana wasn't even a person in a strict sense. He was a digital entity that was currently divided in two. The first half, the one in Lyoko, possessed almost unlimited power and the cold clear-sightedness of a computer, while the other, the weaker half, was still prisoner in the mirror and had begun to develop something new, emotions. But now he had to make a decision. Should he help Mago and become the most powerful digital creature in Earth's history? Or should he help the children by giving in to this strange human component that he still didn't completely understand? In a fraction of a second, the artificial intelligence activated hundreds of simulation programs within himself and analyzed the results. Remaining by the side of the terrorists would mean absolute power, and yet... "No," he replied. The screen showed the smile vanish from Mago's face. "My friend, allow me to explain to you how this works. I have more than one trick up my sleeve." Mago opened his hand, showing his palm. On it was a small black plastic box with a single red button on it, covered by a transparent cover. "All I have to do is to press this button and poof! Supercomputer extinguished, and you'll be trapped inside once again." Xana shrugged. He had already made a decision, and for the first time in his life, he felt a sense of calm coming directly from the part of him that was listening from inside the mirror. I also have some trump cards," he responded calmly. "For example, I can use the towers on Lyoko to enter your brain, and I assure you that it is not a pleasant experience." From the other side of the screen, in the clearing, Eva nodded firmly. So we're equal, Xana continued. Both of us have a gun pointed at the other's head, but that's not why I don't want to help you. I simply can't do it. This was absolutely false, but Xana now had to lie. Jeremy had asked him to pretend he was an ally of the Green Phoenix until the right moment, and according to his statistical projections, that moment had not yet come. Creating robot soldiers is very tiring, the young boy explained. The Yoko's energy resources are still recharging. If you don't believe me, you can ask Jeremy. As soon as I'm ready for action again, I'll let you know. The final image the screen showed before dissolving into thin air was Hannibal Mago slamming his fist on the table. The airtight door opened on all sides, and Richard was sent flying through the air, hitting the cement wall back first. Hertz entered the room like a whirlwind, aiming her gun at the other side of the metal door. The sound of gunfire echoed like thunder through the refrigerator room. Richard moaned in pure fear, while the woman continued to shoot without turning around. "Close the door!" she ordered. These words acted on Richard like a spring. He quickly climbed up the shelves, reaching the hooks hanging from the ceiling and pulled on them, moving them. He then turned to Hertz and noticed a soldier in camouflage uniform behind her, 2 heads taller than her, face covered by a black balaclava and a submachine gun in his hands. Richard wanted to yell, run towards her to help her, but his muscles were contracted and fully resisted the idea of moving. He remained rooted to the spot, watching with eyes wide open as the professor flipped her weapon in her hand and struck the soldier's jaw with the butt. He heard the cracking of broken bones. Then the woman turned on one leg, hitting the man with the heel of her other leg as she corrected her grip on the gun, raising her arm and shooting another soldier approaching through the corridor. "Richard!" she yelled. The young man bounded towards her and helped her close off the refrigerator room, barricading the door with metal hooks they'd taken off the ceiling. They made it just in time. An instant later, they saw the furious faces of soldiers pressing against the small reinforced glass window. The terrorists began to push and slam against the door. "By a hair," the young man murmured. He noticed Yumi stick her head out through the small door leading to the secret room and observed the professor perplexedly. "What happened? Where are the others?" asked the girl. Hertz stuck her gun between her wetsuit and belt before shaking her head. "They were captured. The Green Phoenix agents outnumber us, so they were forced to surrender." "My parents too?" Yumi asked, voice trembling. "I'm sorry," the woman said. "I'm sorry," the woman said, nodding.
Okay, so this chapter confirms that Mago's not doing this under the French military's graces. So
No?
that just means
Nope.
the French are just really stupid in this. Really stupid and
Listen.
unattentive.
He's got money. He's like probably bribing people off.
That's a lot. That's a lot of people to bribe, though.
When your
Yep.
natural tongue is surrender.
I guess he could be lying to them about what he's doing, and that's why he's kind of getting away with it.
Yep. That
but,
too.
But I think by the point where he'd be like, "Hey, France, I'm doing all of this," little more than just France would probably have reason to be concerned. Maybe I'm not saying like, all of NATO would probably jump in and be like, "Yo, France, we got your back," but people would probably not just sit there and watch.
Yeah, if a man wants to take over the world, then who are they to judge, you know?
I really like Xana calling Mago's bluff. Like, Mago's like,
Yeah,
I can
that's
just
cool.
destroy the supercomputer. It's like, yeah, but there goes your super weapon if you do.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, Xana. Xana definitely could just use a Spectre to infect, to take over Mago if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
Since it basically sounds like he's fucking running on that season 4 season 4 finale levels of fucking energy right now.
At the moment,
too.
but
He doesn't have replicas to like create like a
Yeah.
Colossus.
Yeah, but it's from what it sounds like he was
Yeah.
almost as like he was sort of equiescently powerful at the end of season 4. What would be the end of season 4 in this book? Since he was able to still form the Colossus. And in fact, in this case, you could argue he did more with the supercomputer in the books because he doesn't have the replicas and he still makes the Colossus. And the Colossus is also like way bigger, I think.
true.
So but Like, yeah, damn, that like, oh, I'm calling your bluff, man. You wouldn't destroy your super weapon, would you?
Xana doesn't take anything from humans,
To be
please.
fair, I think Mego having that button does help cover him, because if Xana just decides to do his own thing and just starts to like use the power to attack Mego himself, then he's like, well, I can't use the supercomputer either way, so I'm just gonna destroy you.
Yeah, I'm
So I
not
don't die.
saying. I'm just saying, like, Mago's not going to destroy it unless Xana has it out for him.
Yeah.
Mago wouldn't just destroy that. Like, yeah, Xana's not listening to him, but as long as he's not, like, messing with Mago's plans and attacking Mago, Mago doesn't really have a reason to destroy the computer. Like, yeah, sure, fine, Xana's not listening to me, but why would I destroy my super weapon? I just need to figure out how to get rid of Xana.
That, of course, we know that's a task that easier said than done, but...
Well...
Yeah.
The thing I find is, like... So if Xana was trapped on the supercomputer in this timeline, did they... Like, was Aelita permanently bonded to him for the majority of that time?
I have to assume somehow the answer is yes, because Aelita does ask in the first book, well, why didn't you just shut it down, like, right after? And they're like, well, we couldn't. I don't remember how they
by what would the end of season 2 be?
Because she doesn't.
They could have just.
She must have gotten her memory back, because she didn't have her memory in the beginning, but somehow she got it back, and then she lost it at the beginning of Chronicles again. So
yeah,
like, I have to imagine, they don't explain it, but I have to imagine season 2 went down pretty similarly. That she somehow, everyone's like, oh, she's bonded with Xana, and that's because Xana took her memories, and then they got them back, but then etc. etc. No, I don't know. She must have. No, wait, because there's no replicas in this. So she must have somehow been bonded to Xana the entire time.
Yeah, no, like, there has to be a reason
Yeah.
they couldn't have just turned it off after when season 3 rolled around and the timeline here. I don't know, maybe.
But if Xana was still within the computer, he couldn't have tried to destroy Lyoko. Because that would be destroying himself.
Didn't he try to destroy Lyoko in the recap?
Yes.
Okay, skip that. Okay, so when they were recapping
in the recap, I don't remember.
Flower, do you remember in the recap?
I'm actually looking up through the recap, right? No, they don't mention it in the recap, but I know at one point, like, Jeremy's explaining to her past to Aelita, and Aelita's like, why didn't you shut it off? And I can't remember the answer, so I'm looking it up.
Chalk another one up for Code Lyoko Chronicles.
Ba 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 da ba. Ba da ba ba da ba da. Ba da ba 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 da ba.
I am looking through it. I'm just kind of control Fing the word off, and okay, here he is. Aelita, why after all the trouble you had gone to in recovering me from the supercomputer, didn't you shut it down forever? Actually, we did try to turn it off. And then Aelita's like, but something went wrong? And Jeremy says, yes, Xana had demonstrated a willingness to do anything to survive. To prevent us from extinguishing him forever, he used you. Used me. You are the cure, Aelita. The only person who can deactivate the towers and defuse Xana's attacks. Wait. That's right. He doesn't actually answer the question. It turns into him explaining how towers works.
Oh.
Well, so they just like, well, he used you. And she's like, how? What? And then they turn into like this explanation of how the towers work. Yeah, and then it just kind of ends, that whole scene. It cuts back to the gang. So they don't ever actually answer it straight out. I guess they're trying to rely on their source to answer that question, but this also deviates so far from the source that it's just like, that's not reliable.
So, you know, it just happened.
Yeah.
God damn it, Code Lyoko. Code Lyoko. Nick
Bees.
is on a B streak today.
Well, he's literally watching someone read the B movie script.
Or that should be your next little audiobook expenditure.
We were literally talking about that while you were
Oh my
getting
God.
pizza.
I'd watch it. Or listen to it. I don't know.
Oh, I managed to find a hold of the original scripts for the glitch text pilot. I could read that instead.
Hogs. We'll set that at a different time. We should
Yeah,
probably
definitely.
get on to chapter 8.
Yeah, I'm not saying
Oh
do
my
that
God.
now.
Alright, mute up, you peasants.
Here we go.
Chapter 8. Escape into the Mirror. For a moment, Yumi felt the tears threaten to come. Her parents, Oric's father, these 3 funny secret agents, they had all been captured. What would they do to them? Would they assassinate them? Professor Hertz was pressed against the metal door, looking on with worry through to the other side of the small window. Odd and Richard showed up running side by side with more hooks and helped her to completely seal the entrance of the refrigerator room. "They won't be able to get in through here anymore," Odd declared, satisfied. "I'm worried this will only gain us a few minutes," Hertz commented, lowering her head. The professor hurried to tell them what had happened. She and the others had gone from the basement up to the garage where they were confronted by the first soldiers on guard, which provoked a violent shootout. The men in black moved to the living room of the Hermitage, and Yumi's parents and Walter Stern tried to reach the garden, while she stayed in rear guard to defend the only doorway to the underground. And this was what had saved her. From her position, she saw the others lay down their weapons, and the Green Phoenix soldiers tie them up and gag them. Her only option left was to return and rejoin the kids. Yumi was still in a state of shock. She hadn't moved. In front of her, the large door to the room shook under the blows of the terrorists on the other side. "What do we do now?" asked Richard. "Nothing. All that's left we can do is surrender. How are you progressing with the scanner?" These words reawoke Yumi's sense of self-control. This wasn't the time to worry. They needed to act, and now. "There's still another exit," the young girl murmured. "Things change. Xana is helping us. Odd and I can virtualize ourselves into the mirror where he and Alita are. Afterwards, you can destroy the scanner. Then Mago's men won't be able to bring us back in." "What are you talking about?" cried Odd. "You want to abandon Richard, Jeremy's dad, and the professor here?" Hertz motioned for him to stop. "It's a good idea, but we need to act fast." The small group returned to the secret room where Michael continued to maintain his connection to Alita. Yumi explained the situation to him in several words. "All right," her friend approved from within the mirror. "Here with me, you'll be safe. We even found a way to join up with Eva and Ulrich on the Oko." Xana nodded from beside her. "I will protect you from the Green Phoenix." "I'm sorry that you'll have to stay here," said Yumi while she turned to Hertz. "I promise that we'll find a way to save you from this mess." "Clearly, everything has fallen back into your hands, children," the professor responded, shrugging her shoulders. The helicopter flew over the city. Dido checked her watch. 8 minutes until 1 in the morning. The journey from Washington had lasted longer than foreseen after the boss of the Men in Black had to make a pit stop at Brussels to drop off Maggie at the Central European headquarters. It was a necessary detour in order to coordinate the operation and give out several important directives, and she had also taken advantage of the situation in order to switch her means of transportation. The helicopter was a swift and speedy Eurocopter EC-135, as pitch black as the dark of the night surrounding it. On board, in addition to Dido and the pilot, were 5 agents. All were clothed the same way, in black suits with sunglasses on, despite how dark it was inside the cabin. They had shaved their heads, and their faces seemed emotionless, as if they were sculpted out of granite. They were the cream of the crop. They would be useful. Dido concentrated her attention on the city that unfolded beneath them. The road shone with a carpet of light cut in half by the dark strip of river flowing in between. This is where the factory was located, shining on its own in the middle of its small island. And a bit further away was the Ketek campus. A phone started to ring. Dido searched through her small bag, took out the device, and observed the screen. It was Maggie. Tell me everything," she said. "Ma'am, I have a call for you on hold, from Hannibal Mago." Dido let out a sigh. She hadn't yet arrived, and problems were already cropping up. "I'll take the call," she murmured. A moment later, she heard a click and an acerbic, masculine voice. "Welcome to Paris, my friend." Dido wasn't surprised that Mago had discovered her position. This man had money and power, and in order to fly a helicopter over the city, she needed to receive a ton of authorization, which is why she had no choice but to ask him, in an abrupt, assertive manner, what it was he desired. "I have several urgent updates. Some of your men, with a handful of parents of students at Ketek, attacked my location at the Hermitage tonight. My men captured them in several minutes. I already gave you a warning once, and I advise that you don't try to free them or attack the Hermitage. I've restarted work on Project Carthage. Dito was paralyzed. Carthage, the most terrifying weapon ever created by mankind, was now in the hands of a crazy, immoral terrorist. I have a small project in mind, Mago continued, conquering the world. After tomorrow, at midnight on the dot, I will use the supercomputer to stop all air traffic in France. I will then block all communications, radio, telephone, internet, absolutely everything, and I will continue to do so until the government satisfies my demands. Dito understood that this tyrant in power wanted her to ask him what his demands were, but she didn't want to give him the satisfaction. She waited instead until the terrorist began to speak again. I want the Parliament to name me president with full powers. If not, I'll see to it that France is plunged into chaos. Think wisely, Dito. I could paralyze the hospitals, the police, and even the army. I can reduce the nation to ashes. The woman felt a shiver run up her spine. She tried to reply, but before she had the chance, the phone began to emit a deep beep, 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 indicating the end of the call. Michael Belpois straightened the computer. Odds there, he announced. Yumi approached the scanner and brushed the tips of her fingers past the luminous text that cautioned against use by adults. The door was out there, but only she and Odd could use it. The sliding doors that closed off the column opened with a whish, revealing a narrow, cylindrical space that was completely empty inside. Her friend was in the mirror. The young girl turned towards the refrigerator room. From where she stood, she couldn't see Hertz or Richard, but she could clearly hear the noises of muffled cries and dull bangs against the large metal door. How much longer could they resist? What would happen to them next? Jeremy's father gave her a timid smile. Don't worry about us, he whispered to her. As soon as you're virtualized into the mirror, I will destroy the logical components of the scanner and any other fundamental pieces as well. After all, it was me who built this machine. Afterwards, we'll surrender, let the terrorists enter, and give ourselves to them hands up. They won't hurt us, you'll see. That's what I hope, Yumi replied to him. Mr. Belpois shook her hand. Mr. Belpois took her hand. You heard, Aelita. My son, Jeremy, is well. Just like your friends, Ulrich and Eva. That's all that counts. They heard a loud crash arise from the coal room, the noise of a wall on the verge of being bust down. The door's about to give way, Yumi heard. The door's about to give way, Yumi heard Richard's voice. The young girl looked decidedly at Michael Belpois and raised her hand to give a farewell. Then she entered the column, and it closed behind her. Ready for virtualization, exclaimed the man, his voice resonating from the speakers of the scanner. 3, 2, 1. Yumi closed her eyes and felt an invisible energy lift her into the air until her feet separated from the floor. A strong wind ruffled her dark black hair. Then the young girl felt the sense of tingling once more throughout her body. It only lasted an instant. After that, Yumi's feet fell back to the ground. Everything around her had changed. She found herself in a narrow street between several houses. Above her head, the sky was still dark, meaning that it was early in the morning. Odd looked at her with a smile on his face. The boy was no longer wearing his wetsuit. In its place, he had on a pair of purple overalls that were tight against his body with a long tail, and his hands were covered with gloves with sharp claws. On his face appeared the usual lilac stripes befitting of his Catboy avatar. Yumi could also sense that she had transformed. She was wearing a kimono that was tight around the waist and Japanese sandals. Her hair was held back in a complicated hairstyle supported by chopsticks, and she felt the soothing weight of her warrior fans that she kept at her back. I'm having a bit of deja vu, she commented. Only a few days had passed since she and Odd had been virtualized for the first time into the mirror in this exact spot. Yumi knew that they would come across a tired-looking man leafing through the newspaper while leaving the street. He had a copy of The Investigator dated 1st of June 1994. What do we do? He asked his friend, cheerful as usual. Yumi shrugged her shoulders, slightly offended. They had just abandoned their parents, their science teacher, Richard and Michael Belpois, as well as the 3 secret agents. How could he be so peaceful in a time like this? Hurry up, responded the young girl. We need to make it to the bar where Hertz is talking with Dito. The mirror command box materializes there, and then... That won't be needed, Alita interrupted her. The young girl ran to hug her friends. Xana handed them a pair of blue plastic boxes. We thought that it'd be best to speed things up, he explained to them. Here. The soldiers stormed into the refrigerator room upon demolishing the door. I surrender, yelped Richard. We surrender! Don't hurt us! Professor Hertz left her weapon on the ground and observed the soldiers in total calmness. To her side, Melka Belpois seemed a bit worried, and his hands were stained with grease. Taking apart and destroying the key pieces of the scanner had proved more complicated than he had foreseen. The first to enter the refrigerator room was Grigory Nictopoulos. His thin face was marred by fatigue and rage. He shoved Richard aside so hard that it propelled him into the wall and approached Hertz next with a defiant air. The kids, he asked. I know very well they came here too. Hertz didn't budge, and Richard admired the woman's composure. They escaped, she responded, to a place where you couldn't capture them. Grigory leaned over to look into the secret room and gave a sarcastic smirk. How great. You sent them to Lyoko, huh? Perfect. In that case, we can go look for them whenever we want. As the man spoke, Richard could clearly see his icy eyes. They seemed like those of a shark, a merciless predator.
Oh shit, that was the end of that chapter?
It's a short chapter.
Yeah.
Dang.
That was something. I'm sorry, just imagine watching that.
What?
Like,
Richard getting yeeted into the wall?
Yeah, not only that, but just all of it.
The whole scene of all the parents and Hertz like taking on like trained soldiers in the Hermitage with guns.
Exactly.
See,
you have like epic music playing.
So again, we're addressed with the prospect of the French government has no reason to not be aware of what's going on here anymore, considering Dido went to get authorization. So why do you need to fly highly trained military agents into Paris? To stop a terrorist from taking over the world. All right, sounds about right. You can go on. Have fun. Like, no, at this point the French would be like getting their fucking their what is it?
Again, it's possible that this whole situation is so bizarre that it's just like, don't send your regular troops in unless we ask you to. We're gonna handle it. That's probably why they're not like.
I get it. I think there'd just be more obvious more obvious semblance of the French military being on standby than what they were presented with. Like, yeah, maybe they'd be like, "Hey, America, I'm pretty sure this is your secret agent department." And America's like, "Yeah, okay, well, we'll get on it. Just, have your guys on standby or something." I could just imagine a couple French like a French tank crew just staying on their tank on the outskirts of Paris with their phones like, you think they're gonna need us? just having a conversation about whether or not they'll be needed in this like war that's brewing in the middle of Paris.
Yeah, man, they're fine. They're fine. It's fine. Don't worry.
At this point, the French are preemptively surrendering.
Yeah, that's what I was laughing at.
You know what? You're right. No, the French just surrender whenever stuff gets this bad. That's what's going on here. They've just surrendered. They're like, oh, World War III? Oh, well, we'll surrender ahead of time. America will show up eventually.
God.
Oh my God.
We're joking. Please don't
it's
ban
a
us.
joke.
Yeah, please don't ban.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I the amount of detail they went into describing Mrs. Hertz just absolutely ruined a man's life. She swings the butt of her pistol into his jaw, and Richard can hear the bones cracking. Like,
why do you think
she ruined that man's life? Do you know
why do you think I would say? Imagine watching this.
Yeah, but you know how like terrible it is to have like your jaw permanently deformed?
Yeah.
It's really terrible.
Did she do it again?
Clearly not.
But yeah.
Flower, come down. Don't die on me. Don't die on me.
The year is hold on. When did Chronicles come out?
2009. I don't know
Okay.
about this one in particular. I have to double check.
Oh well. The year is 2009. You come home after school to watch season, let's say, book
Season
4.
Season 7 of
2010.
Yoko.
This came out. Book 4 is in copyright 2010. So
The year is 2010. You come home from school to watch season 7 of Code Lyoko. You have you
Flower comes in.
only on your Cartoon Network.
they put the whole the her freaking the guy's jaw in the trailer.
Yeah.
Next up on the brand new episode.
Of Code Lyoko. No. You gotta have a cheesy Cartoon Network, man. So it's ad man. So it's like on the next episode, Code Lyoko. The Odd and Yumi go for a swim, and Mrs. Hertz, Mrs. Hertz,
Ruins a couple men.
Mrs. Hertz gives this guy a new root canal. We'll find out what happens next. Tune in on Code Lyoko. Tune in on the next episode of Code Lyoko. Thursday night at 7 p.m. on your Cartoon Network.
You just get people going like they really don't care, do they, about the censorship? I mean, the original CEO was like kind of sketchy, but this.
Yeah, this would be something. It's great.
Oh my gosh, Dark Santa!
I know why Odd is in this shit this week on Cartoon Network.
Heck yeah!
Alright, we need to slow down before we kill our audiobook vocalist. Alright, stay with me. Stay with me.
It would be amazing. It would be amazing. Code Lyoko Chronicles. This is why Chronicles wasn't animated, because it's too powerful. It's too much. We wouldn't have been able to handle it. The world would not have been able to handle Chronicles. So
I think I remember Tron Tekken saying he wanted to make like a animated version of Chronicles.
Isn't Code Lyoko a film supposed to be Chronicles? Or
is it?
They changed.
I thought it was his own thing. I thought it was like a reboot.
I've heard that it's supposed to be Chronicles,
movie adaptation of Chronicles or video out but I feel like they pulled back on that at some point.
Probably.
And it's not like it was originally their plan, but now they're doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, just wait. We haven't even gotten to the part with the unicorn yet. So
the what?
Today?
No, that's next week, I think.
Oh my god.
Fucking sorry,
unicorns.
the what?
Yeah, I know. Wait, Wazy, you were here yesterday.
I was
when we
I was there. I know, but still.
I think part of
unicorn.
Me when I tell you there's going to be a unicorn later on.
Yeah, I didn't. Like, it didn't really process fully, so I'm like, the what?
The unicorn's not even the craziest thing in that scene. But I just like Dylan's like, what the F is a unicorn doing there? And I'm like, that's actually canon to Chronicles. That's an actual scene that happens.
Hold on, who rides the unicorn? Who rides the unicorn? I gotta ask.
Want to take a wild guess?
Eva?
No.
Ilea?
Yeah, it's Ilea.
All right. On the next episode of Code Lyoko, Season 7, Ilea's got a brand new pet. I'm sorry.
We're trying to not kill Flower here.
I'm sorry.
You need to not kill yourself either.
See, more accurately, the tagline would be all the warriors get new pets. Not just Alita.
Yeah, but this Ulrich gets like a fucking wolf or something, doesn't he? Or no,
I'm
that was
gonna
odd.
answer that.
No, that was odd.
Nope. You're
Where's the
right
image?
on that either.
Where is the image?
It's
Fuck,
in Snapchat.
Where did you? Oh, it's in
I need
Snapchat. That's
I didn't
why.
post it. Eric did.
I have a new goal. I have a new goal to go through every chapter of Chronicles.
You mean gets a wolf, Rod gets a panther, Alita gets a unicorn. What does Ava have?
You can't see it super well, but it's a guitar.
A guitar.
That's her pet?
She's riding it like a broomstick. They're not really pets, they're more mounts.
Does Ulrich gets a manta, doesn't he?
Yep. It's an orange manta.
It's
Whoa.
off
Okay.
screen in that image.
Yep.
Okay. the Leoka Warriors get brand new pets, and you show off.
Stop.
No.
He's gone. He's out of here. I'm sorry.
Did you kick him out? Or was that his internet?
I disconnected him. Welcome back, Wazy.
God damn it.
I couldn't tell if Dylan kicked you out of your internet cut out.
No, he kicked me. I've been pretty stable tonight, so he kicked me. But fine, I'll stop.
You know what you did, Wazy.
I'll stop.
Alright, we need to do chapter 9 and 10.
Alright.
I thought we had done 9. That's why I brought us out to talk, and then I was like, oh shit, wait, no, that was 8. Wow, I just brain farted hard.
Only 5 chapters today, so
yeah,
9 and
that.
10?
9 and 10, and then we're done.
Alright, well,
so
here
mute.
we go.
1 hour and 2 worth of content.
So mute.
It's video game go time. This is a brand new episode of Code Leo.
Wazy!
Chapter 9. The Breach to Lyoko. Jeremy felt dead beat. He couldn't even remember when he'd last slept, and, after another night in front of the computer, he felt like his eyes were about to burst. For an instant his thoughts turned back to his mother, who had always told him not to spend too much time playing video games, because it isn't good for his health. He gave a hint of a smile. His mother had been right, but right now he wasn't playing. This was very serious business. Memory and the boy exited the elevator on the ground floor of the factory. Jeremy blinked several times, realizing that daytime had arrived hours ago. Through the large windows came a gray and milky light. There were dust motes floating and spinning in the air from where they stood to the emerald green nomadic tent. A noise caught his attention, and Jeremy turned his head in the direction of the new platforms that joined the lower floor with the entrance, which was higher up at the end of the bridge. The child thought he was dreaming for a moment. Maybe it was a hallucination due to fatigue, but no, he wasn't hallucinating. Gregory Natopoulos was at the head of the procession, followed by Professor Hertz, who was walking as stiffly as a plank of wood, hands tied behind her back and dressed in a grotesque form-fitting wetsuit. Behind her were the Ishiyamas, then Richard, and a little further behind, no, it wasn't possible, his father, and 3 square-jawed men who looked very lightheaded. They had been caught. "Dad!" cried Jeremy. He saw him look down with a surprised expression that was immediately replaced with a sad smile. Jeremy noticed that someone had given him a black eye. Gregory began to laugh. The boy struggled greatly to not respond to the provocation. If he did, he would pay dearly in one way or another. Memory, are you there?" A voice came from the inside of the green tent. "Enter, and bring that pretentious boy with you." "Let's go," whispered the woman into Jeremy's ear. The tent was luxurious, decorated as if it were made from Persian rugs with gold thread woven into them, and soft cushions decorated with the complex embroidery. Hannibal Mago chewed on a bunch of grapes. He had changed his clothes. He was now wearing a striped canary yellow suit with a hat, vest, and cravat in the same color. Even his silky socks were yellow. The man noticed Jeremy's surprise. "I'm wearing yellow because I'm in a good mood. Today is a very important day for the Green Phoenix." He searched through the interior pocket of his vest and took out a small black plastic box. It had a single button covered by a small transparent cover. Mago fiddled with the object with his ring-covered fingers. "Well," he exclaimed, "you see this little detonator? In Lyoko, Xana's powers are almost unlimited. He can even take control of my mind. What's more, he's already threatened to do so, but this little box puts he and I on equal footing. If I press this button, I will extinguish the supercomputer, and that will allow me to eliminate Xana if he chooses to oppose my plans. Jeremy's heart began to beat at 1,000 miles an hour. If Mago was capable of forcing Xana to help him, he and his friends would have no chance of getting out of it. From now on, the man continued, I'm forbidding you from going down to the underground floors of the factory until further notice. I have other plans in mind for the supercomputer. What must we do, sir? Memory asked. I've already prepared a station and equipment for you. It's in the director's office of the shed. From this moment forward, the two of you will work on decrypting the computer codes full-time. They could contain a weapon, and in that case, I want it to belong to me. In the mirror, Aelita and Yumi were sitting on the floor in front of the extinguished supercomputer terminal. Odd was crouching on the spinning chair, and the three held blue command boxes in their hands. At their sides, Xana levitated about 10 centimeters above the floor, legs crossed and looking like a serene, concentrating Hindu monk in his yoga position. Above his head floated a sphere of light that illuminated the nearby surrounding parts of the room, the rest of which were as dark as the mouth of a wolf. Aelita observed her friends one by one. She was so happy that they were with her, and felt that she didn't have time to lose. Odd and Yumi had told her the latest news. The situation was moving towards a very critical point. Ulrich and Eva are safe, Xana said. If you want, I can establish a connection bridge with them so you can talk. Aelita noticed Yumi's eyes brighten with enthusiasm, and so she decided to suggest a more important plan of action. Wait, she said. The first thing we need to do is decide how to attack the terrorists. We need Jeremy. Yumi frowned. Aelita knew that she had been waiting to talk to Ulrich. Of course! Odd, on the other hand, approved enthusiastically. We need to take them by surprise, attack them, destroy them, and chase them out of Paris for good. Okay, hero, Yumi replied. But what do you intend to do? Well, I'm not sure. That's why we need to call Jeremy. Xana explained to them that he had tried to contact the boy through his other half, the one in Lyoko, but that he hadn't succeeded. Mago in person was now the person working at the supercomputer command post. So, what will our next move be? Asked Odd. Get out of here, Aelita decided after a moment's thought. I'm sick of being stuck in the mirror. The only way to escape this place, Xana explained, is to create a portal that links the Lyoko of the past to the one of the present. I haven't yet succeeded, because there's one small problem. In the mirror, Lyoko only exists when this factory supercomputer is up and running. That's why I'm going to need all of your help at the same time. And we need to be extremely coordinated. You're going to need to use your command boxes to turn the supercomputer on and work the command posts. This way, Aelita and I will use the scanners to enter the Lyoko of 1994. Once there, we'll go into one of the towers, and from there we can create an access. But if we do it like that, you and I will be stuck here, Odd protested. I have a better idea in mind, Xana replied with a smile. With my powers and Aelita's help, I can create a bridge from the Lyoko inside the mirror to this part of the mirror, and through it we can pass through to the real Lyoko, the one from your present. If you say so, commented Odd with a raised eyebrow and suspicious tone. Well, it's just gobbledygook to me, man. You aren't really making a mess of... And you? Aelita asked Xana, drawing the topic away from Odd's paranoia. She had her own doubts. In the Lyoko of the present, there's already a Xana. So what will happen to you? Will you disappear? I'll simply fuse with the other part of myself and become a single entity again. The Xana that currently lives in Lyoko is much more powerful than I, but he's missing something. His human part, in other words, me. Odd and Yumi looked at him in stupor. I believe that Aelita, Xana added after a deep breath, has awoken something in me that I didn't even think I had. It's not easy for me to explain, but I'm convinced that the emotions I'm feeling exterminated the castle's virus. If I'm the antidote, when I unite with Xana's central core, I can also heal that part of me. The boy stopped speaking. He couldn't explain what he was thinking, and that had never happened to him before. This time he'd spent in prison in the mirror with Aelita had changed him. He had discovered emotions he had never before experienced, friendship, longing to help someone, courage, and even fear. Hannibal Mago could turn the supercomputer off at any moment, and he didn't want to be deactivated. He was risking everything to help these children. I think I understand what you're trying to say, Aelita said, smiling. The part of you in Lyoko isn't yet complete, because he's missing a fundamental piece, humanity. Xana's humanity, you, who is now here with us, in the mirror, and is saving us. That's why, when you reunite with your other half, you'll become a complete human being. You may not have a body and flesh and blood like ours, but that doesn't mean much. Inside, you will be human. Aelita stood and approached the young man, who was still floating in the air, and took his hand. Yumi smiled and copied her friend. Odd regarded Xana, somewhat surprised. Bah, why not? He said finally. Here's my hand. The 4 children were now side by side, hand in hand. Xana felt the warmth of human skin as well as a different, more intense warmth, a form of mysterious energy that grew within him, bringing him a sense of peace. Hannibal Mago was a very dangerous man, but they were children and they were together. They could succeed. Xana smiled. Although he couldn't know it, that was his first human smile. Dito's helicopter had brought blankets, fuel for the generators, and other products of utmost importance. With these provisions and the crates of equipment Lone Wolf had already brought, the situation in Kedda grew more normal again. The students had returned to their rooms, and Principal Delmas had given the order for class to start back up again. The men in black were now patrolling the park to ensure the Green Phoenix didn't play any tricks on them. Dito herself had set up in the science laboratory. There were computers, an ADSL internet connection, and everything she needed to contact headquarters in Brussels and manage her men's operations. Mago's threat weighed on her head like the sword of Damocles. Dito had known this man for a long time, and she knew that he was capable of going through with his plan. But she also knew that he wouldn't be happy with conquering just one nation. Other countries would meet the same fate as France, until Mago succeeded in forcing all the world's governments to bend to his will. The woman momentarily concentrated on the warm light that filtered through the laboratory windows. It really didn't seem like winter. It was much warmer in Paris than in Washington. Dito hadn't visited this place in years, and she would have liked to wander around the streets in the city center, drink an exquisite hot chocolate in one of the charming bistros, the typical small cafes here, and maybe later go to a museum. What a shame she didn't have the time. If she didn't find a solution fast, nobody would be drinking hot chocolate for quite a while. Somebody knocked at the door. "Come in," Dito said, taking off the headphones and microphone that she used for video conferences. It was the principal. Mr. Delmos was a short, plump man with gray hair, a well-kept beard, and small, square-shaped glasses. Dito immediately remarked that he appeared to be intimidated. The woman tried to give him an encouraging smile. "Can I do something for you?" "Actually, yes," the man responded. "I wanted to know how things are going, if you had some kind of plan." Dito felt the expression on her face harden. She knew that this conversation would come sooner or later, but she would have been happy to delay it further. She was about to give the principal a fistful of bad news. "I spent the whole morning talking to representatives from the French government, the army, and even the UN, and they all agreed on one thing. We can't get the terrorists what they want." Dito breathed deeply. Principal Delmos was standing beside her, his back slightly hunched. This is the part where the complicated business comes in. Mago is a madman, and to him, conquering France will only be the start of it. If we accept his conditions, the Green Phoenix will plunge the entire planet into absolute chaos. We can't allow this to happen. The government has charged me with the difficult task of talking with him again and trying to convince him to negotiate. If he doesn't accept my proposition... "What will happen then?" asked Delmas in a soft voice. "We'll need to stop him from fulfilling his threats, and as such we'll be forced to attack before midday tomorrow. My agents are already set to begin. We'll use every last resort to conquer the factory. We'll do as much as we can to succeed and avoid having to turn to our alternative." "What alternative?" Dito let out a sigh. "A reserve plan. In case our first attempt fails, we're thinking about an aerial attack to bombard the factory. This way, Professor Hopper's invention will be destroyed and we will be safe." "But you can't do that," the principal exclaimed. "Professor Hertz and the rest of the parents could be in the factory, and maybe even my students." "Believe me, unfortunately I know that all too well. But we have no other choice," Dito responded. "However, I guarantee that we're going to do everything in our power to get them to a safe place first." They split up. Odd went down to the bottom floor of the factory to lower the lever that started the supercomputer. Yumi remained on the first floor to control the command post. Xana and Alita both went to the second floor, where the scanner columns were located. These 3 columns, placed in the center of the room like points on a triangle, seemed like rigid, upside-down metal trees rooted to the ceiling by an inextricable system of cables and tubes. The room was submerged in darkness, but Xana brightened it with a small sphere of light, which now floated above the palm of his hand. Deep down, Alita felt that everything would be fine. They were reunited once again, and they would soon be with the others on the Yoko. In reality, they were still missing Jeremy, but the boy would surely find a way to give them a hand from the factory. The lights on the second floor suddenly turned on, making the walls shine with a delicate tone of color somewhere between yellow and orange. Alita heard Yumi's voice, coming from the speakers hidden in the ceiling. "I did it!" she exclaimed. "The instruments on the terminal are working. Now I can virtualize you under the Yoko of 1994, so get ready. Sorry if I'm a bit slow at this. It's not easy to use a computer while I'm holding a box in my hand." Alita and Xana laughed before heading to the 2 nearest columns. "See you on the other side," whispered Alita as she entered the blinding light that shone from inside the column. The transformation was very different compared to what she remembered. She felt no wind coming from the floor of the scanner, nor the familiar tingling sensation. She simply blinked twice and found herself on Lyoko. She was in the ice sector, which was covered in a thick blanket of very white snow. Above her head there was a navy blue sky so dark it almost looked black. An instant later Xana appeared beside her. "Curious," murmured the young man. "The mayor's passage of Lyoko is different to what I had imagined." "The mirror," Alita began, nodding pensively, "is based on my father's memories, and he hadn't the slightest idea what virtualization really felt like." The girl held a hand out in front of her. Far off on the horizon they could see a white tower sticking out of the middle of the snowy desert like a finger pointing towards the sky. "We need to get over there, correct?" she said. "So, in that case, let's get a move on." Chapter 10. Xana's Rebirth. The director's office was a small room that stank of dust and was taken over by a large, dark wooden desk and a metal filing cabinet. Mago's men had placed 2 powerful computers on the table, capable of connecting to the command post and accessing the code on Richard's palm computer. Jeremy looked all around him. On the other side of the door were 2 soldiers standing guard, but he and Memory were alone in the room. After all, she was Mago's assistant, which surely gave her a certain amount of independence. Without making himself notice, the young boy inspected the content of the first drawer of the desk. He found a stapler and a pen from which he removed the plastic cap and, while Memory had her back to him, used to remove the screws as quickly as possible from the metal tower of the computer. As soon as he finished the operation, a wide smile appeared on his face. Mago's technicians had been ordered to prevent Jeremy from connecting to the internet, but instead of removing the wireless card, they simply disconnected the cables. The boy put the wires back in place in several seconds and closed the central processing unit once more. He could succeed. If the factory had a Wi-Fi connection to the internet, he could now localize it, hack the passcode, and finally entered in contact with Caddick. Jeremy was about to get to work with the keyboard when Memory interrupted him with a hand gesture. The woman took a small artifact out from her pocket that resembled a tennis ball. She held it with 2 fingers, and from the center of the ball appeared a red antenna. "Mago surely set up microphones in this room, but my little machine will interfere with them long enough for us to talk in peace," she said. Faced with a perplexed Jeremy, she continued to speak. "Last night you called me by a new name, Anthea." "It's not a new name," the boy murmured. "It's your real name." "I know, and you also know my husband, and my daughter." Your daughter is named Aelita," said Jeremy, looking her intensely in the eyes, "and your husband is Baldo Schaefer. In other words, Professor Hopper." Memory brought her hands to her mouth. "Hopper? The same Hopper who invented the supercomputer?" Jeremy saw the woman's eyes fill with tears. He smiled, approached her, and began to tell her everything. Lyoko was a fake world. The air hadn't the faintest of scents, and there wasn't even the slightest of a breeze. The snow didn't crunch under the sole of Alita's elbow shoes, and ice was everywhere, even though it wasn't cold. The sky was a uniform navy blue. Alita knew that for the rest of the kids, this strange world was difficult to bear. It made them nauseous and gave them vertigo, and they had trouble adapting to its ambience. But it was different for her. In a sense, she was like Xana, a creature of Lyoko. The tower was glowing in front of them. It was about 10 meters high, and its surface was opaque and smooth like alabaster. Alita ran as fast as she could with Xana by her side. "Can we do it?" she asked without slowing down. "Will we really be able to open a breach from this Lyoko to the real one from the present?" Xana burst out laughing. "You'll see," he said to her. "Together we're capable of anything." They quickly crossed the final stretch and stopped 1 step from the tower. Gnarled roots like tentacles sprung from the ground, twisting and winding around the base of the structure that glowed of its own light. Aelita extended a hand and saw her fingers disappear through the curved wall, creating small ripples on its surface. She crossed to the entrance of the tower like a ghost. She found herself in a dark space illuminated only by the fluorescent symbol that wasn't on the ground, formed by circles and lines that represented the eye of Xana. From outside, the tower seemed as high as a 5-story building, but its inside seemed infinite. Even upon sharpening her view as much as she could, Aelita wasn't able to make out a ceiling. The young girl knew that in reality there was no ceiling. She looked at Xana, took him by the hand, and walked with him to the center of the eye on the floor. A strong wind pushed them up, ruffling their clothes and flying the children up at a breakneck speed. They suddenly stopped on a small circular platform that was floating in midair. At more or less 1.5 meters above the platform, suspended in the air, was a bright screen. "Be brave," whispered Xana. Alita nodded. With the box from the mirror held strongly in one hand, she pressed her other hand on the screen, and suddenly letters appeared on the monitor forming the word Alita. The walls of the tower became covered with symbols, strange white glyphs that began to glide downward in a cascade of light. Xana posed his hands beside the young girl's, completely covering the screen. He closed his eyes and exclaimed, "Start the procedure." Memory attentively listened to absolutely all of Jeremy's words, then stood and left the room. The boy had let her leave. It must be hard on her. And Thea had been kept prisoner by Hannibal Mako for 20 years, a whole life. And now she had to learn from the mouth of an unknown boy that her husband was dead and that her daughter was still alive, but was 13 years old instead of 23. Jeremy sighed. He had avoided telling Anthea certain details. For example, that Alita was currently on Leoka with the rest of the kids. He understood how the woman felt, and knowing that her daughter was so close to her might make her feel better. But the young boy had a lot of work to do and needed as much help as possible from both her and Alita. He let his fingers fly across the keyboard. He tried a direct attack, using brute force, against the passcode of the factory network, then another. A bit later, he managed to strike down all the protection barriers and immediately conceal his invasion by erasing the registries and some other small tricks. Lastly, he took advantage of the internet connection to analyze the state of the transmissions entering and leaving Caddock. The science lab had clearly become the center of intelligence, harboring an intense amount of communication. At the moment, through Professor Hertz's computer, about a dozen international telephone conversations were passing. The one making all these calls couldn't be Professor Hertz. Jeremy had only just seen her a while ago in the factory taken captive, so then who was it? The boy focused in on the active computer and opened a chat window. "I am Jeremy, at the factory on the island," he wrote. "Who am I talking to?" After several moments, a response arrived. "Dito, is the connection secure?" Jeremy couldn't believe his luck. The boss of the Men in Black had come to France and was at Caddock. "I don't know," he typed. "Okay, it is now. I've activated some devices. Are you able to talk?" Jeremy explained the situation to the woman and read her summary of all the latest events, mouth open. The Men in Black were ready to attack the factory and were trying everything they could to get them all out before having to resort to more extreme measures to stop Mago. Dito didn't tell him the type of attack that she had in mind, but Jeremy was smart enough to figure it out on his own. National security was at risk, and the agents would act in response using whichever means necessary at their disposal. What was at risk was too important for them to leave the situation unresolved. The young boy stopped to think, biting his lips. There must be another solution. There must be. "We aren't done yet," he wrote in conclusion. "I'll try to get back in touch with you later." And he closed the window. The screen in front of Alita had grown. It was now more or less her height and as wide as a door. It resembled a mirror that would be placed on the inside of a closet door, except that the young girl was unable to see her reflection in front of her. Instead, she could see a bunch of trees. It was the forest sector of Lyoko. Ulrich and Eva were sitting on the ground, talking. "Alita!" cried Ulrich upon noticing the presence of his friend. The young man hopped to his feet. "Wait!" Xana kept him back as he began to approach the screen. "I still need to stabilize the connection." Beside Ulrich appeared another Xana. He was exactly identical to the one with Alita in the tower, and he had the same focused expression on his face. The two Xanas observed each other for a moment from the two sides of the opening. Then the one located with Ulrich brought up his hands to support the lower corners of the screen. It seemed to take a great effort on his part, as if the breach was trying to close itself by exerting an incredible amount of pressure. "What's happening?" asked Alita with a reedy voice. The Xana by her side gave a tired smile. "The other part of me is helping me to open the connection now with the real Lyoko. This way we'll be able to take care of Yumi and Odd." The young man raised his hands towards the sky and used them to summon a new screen. Lita placed her two hands against it to introduce her activation code, and an image formed immediately inside. It was of Odd, who had been waiting impatiently on the third underground floor of the factory. Alita outstretched a hand towards her friend, and her hands sunk into the smooth surface of the screen, crossing through. "Quick!" she called out to him. "Come through here!" Odd gave an expression of pure and simple stupor. He quickly obeyed, crossing through the screen in a jump, suddenly finding himself between Alita and Xana in the tower. The young man with black hair closed the portal with a sigh and made another one appear, this time showing Yumi at the command post of the factory. They had nearly succeeded. The young girl passed through the portal and joined back up with Odd and Alita inside the tower. Xana closed the breach and approached his copy, who was maintaining the opening to Lyoko. The two Xanas stood face to face, legs apart, anchored firmly to the ground, their arms stretched up against the top of the opening. Their faces were tense from all the effort. Lita could see their muscles shaking under the pressure, which must have been immense. Yumi jumped through the portal to reach Ulrich and Eva. The young girl, clothed as a geisha, rushed to embrace the samurai with such love that the two ended up tumbling onto the grass of the forest sector intertwined. Odd smiled at Eva before leaping with joy in her direction. Alita, exhaled the two Xanas at the same time, their teeth clenched. Go, now. I can't hold the breach open for much longer. The young girl hesitated. What about you? She asked. I'll do what I have to do, replied the two Xanas. But hurry, that's an order. His tone was so forceful and weak that Alita obeyed instantly. Odd and Ulrich took her by the arms and the young girl crossed through the screen. She abandoned the mirror and found herself on the Yoko, close to her friends. The portal immediately shut behind her with the ferocious snap of a guillotine. The whirlwind from the implosion tossed Xana's particles with it, or rather the ones of the Xana who had been stuck within the mirror. The artificial intelligence's passage wasn't physical. A blast of bits of information crossed the software of the portal and entered the Yoko, where the unification procedure that had been waiting them immediately executed. The experiences and thoughts that had occupied the body of the first Xana were divided up, analyzed and assimilated into the larger Xana awaiting it. It was like a stream that, after having finally crossed the mountains, met up with the plains where it could merge with the main river. But it was also something different, something more, like a large explosion. Xana felt the power surging through him, making him tremble with excitement. He was alive. He was a mathematical machine, and the principles of mathematics confirmed that the whole was equal to the sum of its parts. But upon reunifying himself, he became something greater than his individual pieces. He was now a person, and this person needed to find his outlet through something physical, through a body. Xana laughed, and his laughter shook the eternally still trees of the Yoko and ruffled the hair of the children who were watching him from the center of the clearing. He was about to reunite with them, become one of them. He knew that by accepting his new human dimension, he would lose a lot of his powers. He could no longer abandon his body, for example, to enter another's and control them. But that didn't matter to him. To be a person was what was really important to him. To become human. This was his choice, his destiny, and he was ready to accept it with all of its consequences. Xana gave his body form. He let the Yoko construct the identity of its guardian for the last time. He transformed himself into a tall, thin, young boy, dressed in a tight-fitting outfit. His hair was completely disheveled, except that it was no longer black, but the color of wheat left to ripen in the sun. Alita approached him and extended a hand towards him. Is it you? She asked. You're Xana. The young boy nodded his head and gave a slight bow. I did what I had to do. Thanks to you, Alita, I'm now a new person. The guardian of the Yoko is from now on a child, just like you.
Reunification, reunifying, yeah, I get.
You know, in the heat of the moment, I was like, this shouldn't be this hard to say.
You took like,
but
what, 2 hours to record these?
Yeah, this was the last chapter, and I'm just like, ugh.
Reunification.
Reunify.
Honestly,
reunifying. I remember there. It's just like, oh, so the French are, so what, the French are like aware and just didn't care until now, or they thought it was a joke and didn't care until now. Like, it just feels like we shouldn't have gotten to this point.
Wait, you're trying to take over the world? I thought that was just a joke.
You can just imagine some madmen just like, hey, president, make me president now or else I'm gonna wreck your systems. And they're just like, really? Come on, dude, you can't wreck our systems.
Yeah.
And he can't get Xana to do it for him. So, like, he doesn't have anything to back him up.
I mean, he's probably gonna try his bluff again on Xana, even if it doesn't work.
Yeah. So Xana's now a human being.
Without a body.
Yeah. He got a body, but still. Chronicles
of... Do you even love me? 'Cause you don't show it.
Nah. Chronicles isn't just bad, it's honestly kind of hilarious, if I'm being real. or at least book 4. Like the rest of them, okay.
I'm telling you. Book 4 was written on LSD. There's no other way this book was written.
I believe that. just chapter after chapter, it gets more and more.
two parts of the two parts of Xana and Aelita were holding the door open. Xana was getting weak. Aelita, go through before I die. That's an order.
God.
Flower, come down. Flower, come down. Deep breaths. Deep breaths.
I'm fine.
These books are great. I don't blame you at all. At all.
I mean, when I read these, I just become kind of numb inside. Just like
Yeah.
I try
Hello,
to be
darkness,
genuine.
my old friend. I've come to talk with you again.
We're only halfway through the last book, so codes and Nick.
Oh, there's still gonna be more.
Oh, yeah.
Because a vision softly creeping.
Just imagine.
Left its
Just
seeds while I
imagine.
was
We're gonna bomb. Like, wait, but there's still children in the factory. Yeah, unfortunately, that's what's gonna have to happen.
Yes!
That's more.
Yeah,
We need to.
we need to save the sacrifice the children to save the world.
That's what has to be done.
You know, I wonder how much of this could have been solved though with just a return to the past.
A lot.
But you know, Chronicles just refuses to acknowledge that the return to the past is a thing.
Yeah.
Chronicles just refuses to acknowledge basically that most of the show happened. So
Are the characters in character? That's really what matters in the end.
Yeah, and
sort
for
of.
the most part,
I mean, yeah, we can just ignore all of the very heavily important story points that got those characters to be like that, but
I mean,
yeah, all that
at the
matters
very
is that
least-
they're in character, whether or not the backstory of the book compels it.
at the very least, the Leoka Warriors themselves are far less offensive than Hertz and the parents. Like, honestly,
To be honest, everyone thinks like I think one of the more popular fan theories is that Hertz is in on it, and she just doesn't say anything.
No, Jim being in on it is more popular.
Yeah,
Jim being in on it. Really?
Yeah.
I guess.
Because of his whole, like,
I'd
rather not talk about it in
yeah, I
crazy
guess
backstory.
Yeah.
Lied.
okay. But I think one of the more sensible people to be in on it would be Mrs. Hertz.
We talked about
I
this
think-
earlier that, like, Hertz,
Yeah.
canon Hertz doesn't really feel like there's not enough setup to
Exactly.
imply that Hertz is really secretly
Yeah.
like an ex-military
But, like,
officer.
If it was anyone at Caddick, it'd have.
It would be Jim. I'd still think
It
he was
would
a
be
stronger case.
Because, like, you can argue that, yeah, Jim, it is a little more obvious because he wears a lot of that on his sleeve, but the thing of it is like, there's more...
If he runs it as a
there's
joke,
more-
no one will actually believe it, and thus this is the best cover.
Exactly, and it's just like, there's more canon evidence for Jim to actually be involved with such things. Like,
Yes.
for example, false start. Literally, lots of attacks that he's been able to handle surprisingly well for your run of the mill gym teacher, you know. But also just. Sorry, go ahead.
Who was like a janitor for most of his life.
Yeah. It's just like, but then there's also, but like with Hertz as a character, she's just, at least within canon, she's just very, things are very simple. She's a
very reserved character.
Yes.
And I don't know, there's really only two routes you can go when hiding a secret. You're exceptionally reserved so that people just don't tend to ask you questions, or you're exceptionally flamboyant in such a manner that people just don't believe you. Jim is the exceptionally flamboyant character who nobody would believe. Like Jim was a high level secret agent for the Americans. Yeah, right.
Honestly,
This sounds like something you'd rather not talk about.
See, here's what it occurs to me. The book never has him make an I'd rather not talk about it joke.
Oh man, that's canceled. Absolutely.
See, people are like, the books are better, but I'm like, yeah, but does Jim not rather talk about him? Books say no. Doesn't he says the I'd rather not talk about it, or the evolution alludes to Jim not wanting to talk about things. I don't know if
evolution has him say it.
Okay, evolution has explicitly said. I know the Warriors make a remark about it.
No, he said it.
Okay,
I
so he
know
said it. And the Warriors have talked about it in evolution.
Yeah.
So yeah, evolution's just better because it's more true to who Jim is. He'd rather not talk about shit.
Exactly, but no. While talking about Jim and Hertz, like as characters, like they're the two that would be most likely to be on it. What if in the past Jim and Hertz were actually partners? And you have a whole spin-off with Jim and Hertz's adventures in the past when they were secret agents together. I think that's potential for some real money making. It could be great.
To be fair, Jim, maybe that's the reason Jim has like a closet crush on Mrs. Hertz.
Yeah, because they had all those adventures together. No, okay. So their final mission. Here's why Hertz is completely unsuspicious. In their final mission, Hertz had to get her memory wiped for one reason or another. So Jim remembers, but Hertz doesn't, and it's painful for him.
No, the last mission, Mrs. Hertz got hit in the head and forgot about things. And Jim is like waiting for the day for her to gain her memory so they can go back to being secret agents,
including their very heated romance that they had back in the day. He still loves her. He still loves
her. This is the Code Lyoko. This is the Code Lyoko canon that we deserve.
But, yes, exactly.
But not the one we need. Poor Jimbo.
Right?
I love this.
Wait, guys, poor Jimbo, forever lost in love limbo.
God damn it!
I'll see myself out.
So sad.
You were saying, Flower?
I was saying I'm down. I'm down for this crazy theory.
That's it.
More than anything in Chronicles.
I mean, yeah.
Oh my god.
I'm telling you.
Honestly, I could see like just this absolutely bonkers backstory of Jim, where that just puts them at every location there's a supercomputer. Just somehow he's been everywhere that there's just a supercomputer. So he knows, like, he actually knows a ton of stuff because of he was a janitor at all these places. I don't know how to explain him getting to the ISS, but I don't know, he could have been there when they were building it or something. He could have been the janitor when they were building the ISS.
Yes.
So there's how he knows about and he's just like this super intelligent person when it comes to quantum computers. But he just so when we have Code Earth, he just plays dumb so Jeremy can feel better about himself, because Jim's just a cool guy.
Exactly. Jeremy's just a kid. He's gotta it would be wrong if Jim came in and just showed him up like, yes, you mean this concept. And
I wouldn't say Jim's capable of doing anything with one, but like he understands.
I know. Yeah, I know. But
all right. Well, I think that is a beautiful place to end the stream.
Oh.
Yes.
Yep.
We'll be back next Friday Actually, no, it's not Friday. We will be back. We will be back Saturday at 4 p.m. for the next stream. And then that will be followed up by next Sunday, the 13th. Yes. Sunday the 13th for the stream after that, which would be also at 4.
Woo.
We hope to see you guys there. Oh, bye-bye.
Wait.
Bye.